What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Diesel Dog video, and tonight I'm gonna go over everything I worked on in a week as a medium heavy duty diesel mechanic. I wrote everything down here because there's no way I'd be able to remember all of this. So worked a little overtime this week, about 9.5 hours every day, and worked on only big trucks. Some weeks I work on only pickups. Some weeks it seems like I only work on semi trucks, bigger trucks. So this week, didn't really touch any pickups other than looks like a F750, but that's still a pretty big truck, air brake system, so let's get into it. Monday morning, came in, first job on the docket, 04 Freightliner M2. This is a tanker truck. Complaint was weak cranking and no airflow out of the vents. So first thing I noticed was the batteries smelled like rotten eggs. Pretty good indicator, you should check the batteries. Found the batteries junk, put 2 batteries in it. Airflow, check the cabin filter first, obviously. Plumb plugged up, put a cabin filter in it, good airflow out of the vents. Cooling at 48 degrees, so that's pretty good, I'd say, for 04 Freightliner in a hot, muggy environment that is Southern Illinois. Then I jumped on a 09 Peterbilt. This is a truck I'm already in the middle of at the time, getting a new transmission, clutch, flywheel was junk, put a rear main in it, and then I wrote up for motor mounts. So motor mounts came in, was waiting for them, stuck the motor mounts in this thing. Had to get the air hammer out, had to get the torch out, per usual for some old crusty motor mounts, but hammered them out and got the new ones in. Fairly easy. This thing's pretty dirty truck. This Peterbilt is a recycling company's truck, so it's big roll-off truck, got the 2 rails that come up. Pull the metal bin up, the recycling bin, off they go to wherever they go. Wherever they go has got to be pretty dirty because this truck is freaking filthy underneath, caked with dirt. So I got the motor mounts in, then I had a 17 F750, got a DOT and complaint of brake squealing. The DOT found some lights were out, some marker lights, and a spotlight on the back was just dangling there. So I put a new spotlight on it, repaired all the lights, checked the brake squealing, suspected that the front brakes, shoes and drums is the air brake system, shoes and drums were glazed over. So wrote up for trying new brakes and drums on the front. We had already done the rears previously for the same complaint. Apparently came back and sounded like the fronts were squealing, so that's what I wrote it up for. Then I had an 04 Peterbilt. DOT, this thing had some extensive notes, a lot of brake issues. The right steer wheel bearing was super loose, and I could hear the bearing make a noise in there, so assume that the bearings are bad. Possible spindle junk when they're that loose. So wrote all that stuff up, and then I had a power steering leak I had to wash off. Found the reservoir cap was loose, just sitting on top. The cap is also the dipstick in there, so tighten that up, washed it all off. Power steering fluid was run down all the lines coming off the reservoir, so washed it all off, ran it, seemed to take care of it, didn't find any other leaks, so that was that one. And that ended my day. Tuesday, first thing, 18 Kenworth, had a wheel seal. This was a disc brake system. Had a tough time getting the caliper bolts off. Had 3 mounting bolts up top, 3 at the bottom, and they were tight. So finally got that done, took some extra time for that. Then I finished up, someone had PM'd it, we're waiting on an air filter, so I stuck an air filter in it, and that took care of that one. Then I put the front brakes and drums on the 17 F750, drove it around, seemed to take care of the brake squeal. Then I jumped back on the 09 Peterbilt. I installed flywheel, installed clutch, stabbed the trans, and bolted it up, and that was the end of the day. So Wednesday, finished up the trans, got everything bolted up top, put it all back together. Nothing too crazy that I remember. It went together fairly easy. Just a dirty job. Had the oil cooler, like the tube cooler, mounted up top to the front of the trans. That was probably the worst part of that. I had to go up over the side of the frame rail, through the fender up top. So I'm doing one of these deals and trying to get the lines up on there and line back up in the bolts, but other than that, not too bad. Just took a little time. So yeah, then the other thing on this truck was ABS light on, and found the drive ABS sensors, both of them, the harnesses were broken, and I found multiple places in the main harness that were busted, and also a lot of repairs that people had just been butt connecting this thing together over time. So wrote up for 2 new sensors and main harness. And of course the main harness is on national back order, go figure. So Thursday, pulled the wheels, pulled the drums, started changing the ABS sensors, and unfortunately they were seized in the tubes. The plastic part of the sensor came out and the metal sleeve stayed in. It was all rusted up. So usually when they're that rusted up, I prefer to just pull the hubs. And this one, the left wheel seal was actually seeping pretty good, so might as well just pull the hub, put a new seal on it, clean it all up. You can drive that sensor out a lot easier that way. You're not messing up the tone ring or anything trying to pry it out. So pull the hub off, you can clean the tone ring, everything goes back together with anti-seize and all that, and just a nice cleaner way of trying to repair a stuck sensor if it's that bad and everything's that rusty. I prefer to just pull the hub. But this thing had other plans. I got the left side to do that all apart and everything, but the right side, the axle shaft, would not come out. It'd come out like 3 inches and then it gets stuck. Long story short, it's locking diff. The diff wouldn't lock in. I had to free up the plunger. That was a whole mess in itself. I finally got the diff locked in, and still the shaft wouldn't come out. So either the shaft's twisted, the splines are messed up, or it's rusted up on that fork for the locking diff. Either way, decided to just clean up that shaft, the flange, stick it back, bolt it back up to the hub, and had to get the torch out, heat up that tube. I finally got creative enough to get that thing out of there. It was a big pain, but it makes it harder to clean up the inside of the bore of that tube where the sensor goes in if you don't have the hub out. So I got it best I could. It is what it is. So I pretty much got the wheel seal stuck in the left side, all cleaned up, ready to go back there with the new sensors I was waiting on for Friday. So that's where I ended on Thursday. So Friday, picked back up on the ABS, got everything back together. Took a little bit of time, not too much, a couple 2-3 hours, whatever. And then we're waiting on the main harness. So that was that. Next job was a 2012 Freightliner Cascadia. This is a truck that got previously checked out by another tech, but the guy took the truck, came back for his repairs. I was free, so I got the job. But evaporator, heater core, dryer, APU issue was the APU was rattling. So the heater core, the guy just wanted to do it since we were right there, which isn't really like too much mixed labor, but the only thing I got lucky on was the evaporator. These things, the housings, they're like molded in there, but if you change it, you got to cut out the back side of the housing to remove either the heater core or the evaporator. They're both like molded in there. So the evaporator had been changed once before. It had already been cut out, and the new like door on the back side bolted on. The heater core was not, so I had to cut out the plastic with a razor, which is a pain. Slide it out, I had to wallow it all out with my die grinder to make sure the new one fit in there just right. And then got the dryer on, charged it up. It was blowing 55 degrees. It was pretty good. It was like, with the heat index, it was like 109 on Friday. It was terrible. So cooling 55 degrees, pretty good. The APU, the rattling, I found the motor mount, like the mount for the APU on the back side. 2 bolts were coming out. One was missing. And then the other one was broken off. So I tightened the 2 bolts up, put a new bolt in with thread lock on the one. The other one broken off, just let the guy know like, hey, you got a bolt broken off, but you're gonna be tearing this whole thing apart to try to remove that thing. So held on with 3 bolts, pretty much took care of his rattle in there. So that was my week as a medium heavy duty mechanic. Like I said, some weeks I only work on big trucks, some weeks seems like I only work on pickups, but this was a big truck week. That transmission job was probably the hardest thing, just a lot of labor and you know, you swap over the bell housing and everything, air fittings and everything on the transmission, rebush the cross shaft bushings, and new shift work and all that. Just takes a little time. A lot of cleaning up, pressure wash some stuff as you go. But fairly painless, I suppose. But yep. Sometimes I think maybe for your newer techs, like wanting to get into this field or just getting in, like sometimes it's cool to hear like what some of the guys are working on. Maybe it gives you a little insight on what you might be getting into as a diesel tech. But we're an independent shop, so we kind of do a little bit of everything. It's not like a dealer, where a dealer you might be doing a lot more of the same jobs, more repetition, but at our shop, there's no telling what might come through the door. So I like that. I like the inconsistency and feeling like you get kind of a handle on a little bit of everything. So that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. Why don't you drop a comment down there and let me know some of the weird stuff you guys have ran into the past few weeks, or a job that took you a while to figure out, but you got it figured out, or, you know, whatever you want to put down there. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.